first. Werewolves are ancient beings. They may not have always gone by that name, but they have for sure been around for a long while. But what was the first fictional story of man turning into beast? That would be the tale of Neros. Now, many scholars argue that Gilgamesh is the first werewolf story, but since there was no actual transformation in that story, some don't count it. Instead, they believe the first werewolf story came from the Satiricon, a work written by the Roman writer Petronius, February 27, 2024 to 66, a scribe at the court of the Emperor Nero, and like many writings of the time, it is a humorous discussion of philosophy in alternating prose and verse. The work was written around AD 61 but wasn't published until 1664, many years later. The Satiricon is a collection of stories that follows the travels and tales of two friends, Encolpius and Geta, but also contains the story of Neros, a soldier that traveled to a distant city with an acquaintance. While on their way, they stop at a graveyard to relieve themselves. Why a graveyard? I have no idea. To poor Neros' horror, his companion then laughs wickedly, makes a circle of urine around himself, rips off his clothes, then transforms into a wolf, howls and runs off towards the nearby town, leaving a very stunned Neros behind. Neros then goes over to the man's discarded clothes, only to discover that they have been turned to stone. Crazy, right? Those Romans and their weird stories. It doesn't end there, though. Poor frightened Neros walks to town, so afraid that he attacks every shadow with his sword. When he gets there, he is told by a woman that a horrifying wolf killed off a handful of farm animals, but was then speared in the throat by a servant, putting an end to the wolfman. There are, of course, many underlying meanings hidden in this tale, like urinating in a graveyard was an insult to the dead and would cause supernatural punishment. Either way, it was a humorous and strange ancient story, the first werewolf tale of its kind. An ancient tribe of werewolves, Romulus and Remus, who, as you may or may not know, are the founders of Rome. These twin brothers were the supposed sons of the god Mars, aka Ares, and the priestess Rhea Silvia, daughter of Numitor. As soon as the baby boys were born, they were abandoned and left for dead in a remote part of the forest. It was there that they were found by a she-wolf, who instead of killing them, nursed them with her own milk and took care of them with the help of a woodpecker. After some time, Romulus and Remus were then discovered by Faustulus, a shepherd, who brought the children to his home. Faustulus and his wife, Acca Laurentia, raised the boys as their own. When the boys grew up, they killed Amulius, the king of the land, and reinstated Numitor, their grandfather, as king of Alba Longa. Then they decided to make a city of their own, and they chose the place where the she-wolf had nursed them for their new home. Romulus began to build walls on the Palatine Hill, but Remus mocked them because they were so low. He leaped over them to prove this, and Romulus in anger killed him. Romulus then continued the building of the new city, naming it Roma after his own name, and that's how Rome came to be. Now to the werewolf bit. Once Romulus built his city, it is said that he then divided the people into 3 tribes, which bore the names Remus, Tides, and Luceres. The Luceres are the werewolves I'm talking about. It is believed that the Luceres were possibly a tribe of werewolves, which were also said to be a group of wild or insane people. Many scholars have argued that the first of the Luceres were lupine werewolves with powerful and cruel chiefs that terrorized the native people in the area. But of course, we don't know for sure. What we do know is that the pages of our mythology books claim that the Luceres tribe could very well have been a group of fearsome werewolves. A Roman werewolf. Neros was still a slave at the time his story is set, and was after a girl, Melissa. He had, he tells us, waited till his master is away, and then had persuaded a guest of the house to accompany me as far as the 5th milestone. The guest was a soldier, and as brave as the very devil. We set out about cockcrows. The moon was shining as bright as midday, and came to where the tombstones are. My man stepped aside amongst them, but I sat down, singing, and commenced to count them up. When I looked around for my companion, he stripped himself and piled his clothes by the side of the road. My heart was in my mouth, and I sat there while he urinated a ring around them and suddenly turned into a wolf. Now don't think I'm joking. I wouldn't lie for any amount of money, but as I was saying, he commenced to howl after he was turned into a wolf and ran away into the forest. I didn't know where I was for a minute or two. Then I went to his clothes to pick them up, and damned if they hadn't turned to stone. Was ever anyone nearer dead from fright than me? Then I whipped out my sword and cut every shadow along the road to bits, till I came to the house of my mistress. When Neros arrives, however, he learns that there has been a development. My Melissa wondered why I was out so late. "Oh, if you'd only come sooner," she said. "You could have helped us." A wolf broke into the folds and attacked the sheep, bleeding them like a butcher. But he didn't get the laugh on me, even if he did get away, for one of the slaves ran his neck through with a spear. I couldn't keep my eyes shut any longer when I heard that, and as soon as it grew light, I rushed back to Arcadia's house like an innkeeper beaten out of his bill, and when I came to the place where the clothes had been turned into stone, there was nothing but a pool of blood. And moreover, when I got home, my soldier was lying in bed, like an ox, and a doctor was dressing his neck. I knew then that he was a werewolf, and after that, I couldn't have eaten a crumb of bread with him. No, not. Virgil's Werewolf. In 39 BC, the Roman poet Virgil wrote Alphesaboius, and in it sang about a werewolf named Morris. It is one of the earliest references to werewolves and may have even sparked some of today's werewolf traditions and beliefs, but scholars are still debating that. These herbs, these poisons that were culled in Pontus, it was Morris himself that gave them me. Such herbs are common weeds in Pontus. Oft by their sorcery I have seen Morris turn wolf and hide within the woods, oft call forth spirits from their deep-dug graves, and charm away to other fields whole harvests of sown corn. Draw him home from the town, my charms, draw Daphnis home to me. Numberless, carry these ashes forth and into running stream over your head fling them, and look not back. With these will I afflict Daphnis. Naught cares he for the gods, naught for my charms. Draw him home from the town, my charms, draw Daphnis home to me. Look, of itself the ash, while we delay carrying it hence, has kindled the altar with a flickering flame. Good be the omen. Something it must be, and there is Hylax barking at the threshold, and I believe it. Or do lovers cheat themselves with break off? Daphnis from town is coming. Break off now, my charms. Lycaon. Lycaon, in Greek mythology, a legendary king of Arcadia. Traditionally, he was an impious and cruel king who tried to trick Zeus, the king of the gods, into eating human flesh. The god was not deceived, and in wrath devastated the earth with Deucalion's flood. According to Ovid's Metamorphoses, Book I, Lycaon himself was turned into a wolf. The story of Lycaon was apparently told in order to explain an extraordinary ceremony, the Lycaea, held in honor of Zeus Lycaeus at Mount Lycaeus. According to Plato, Republic, Book the 8, this ceremony was believed to involve human sacrifice and lycanthropy, assuming the form of a wolf. The Greek traveler Pausanias implies that the rite was still practiced in the 2nd century AD,